What's going on, you guys? Claire, welcome back to the channel Code Commerce. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can build a real-time chat application using React, Supabase, and Google authentication. So let's have a look at what we're building. You can see actually I have two browsers open. That's because I'm going to log in with Google on two separate accounts. So let's go ahead and log in over here. I'm going to log in over here. This is going to be one of my accounts. This logged into a completely different account. You can see signed in as Clint at codingecommerce.com. You can see this one, e-commerce back in the day. Anyways, so you can now see we actually have two users online. And this is dynamic, by the way. It automatically updates. As soon as we log out, you see that changes back down to 1. We'll go ahead and sign back in. And you can see we actually shoot this a message. Hey, what's up? You actually see it displays in real time on the opposite side of the screen. And we're going to be using Supabase sockets for this. We can go and chat back. Not much, yo. And it's actually not that difficult to build. I'm going to show you how to build this from start to finish. React, Supabase, Google authentication, a little bit of Tailwind. Let's get started. All right, so here we are in VS Code. I'm going to go ahead and press the Control Backtick button just to open up our terminal here. And let's create our React application. I'm going to type npm create v at latest. And let's go ahead and install this inside the current directory. Let's find React. We'll do JavaScript plus the speedy web compiler. I'll type npm I. Now we are using Tailwind for this build. This isn't a huge Tailwind tutorial, but it's pretty easy to use if you're not familiar with it. Just go to tailwindcss.com. We'll click on Get Started, and this is a new UI for Tailwind. I like it. I like it. We're using Vite, so we'll just stay right here. I'm going to copy that, and let's just go ahead and install Tailwind. Next, we need to add this import here inside the Vite config. So let's just go ahead and grab that. And we should find the Vite config, and I guess we're just going to add it here to that React. There we go. Hopefully this will work. Let's import that, and let's come down here, and this looks a little bit different from what I'm used to. So let's do this. We'll import this inside of our index.css. So I'm just going to import that there at the top, and I'm just going to I'm just going to delete all that body tag. We'll leave the index.css. Let's delete the app.css. And let's go ahead and start our server. I'm gonna type npm run dev, start up our development server. Let's close this. We'll go to localhost 5173. And let's go into our app.jsx. Let's remove that. It's looking for that. We already deleted it. All right, so now you can see we actually have Vite installed. It looks kind of funny since we deleted the app.css file, but that's okay. We can go and delete that, and let's just remove everything inside here. I'm just gonna change this to a div instead of just like an empty fragment. And we should have just a blank screen. So now that we have React installed, we have Tailwind configured. What I want to do first is actually create like the container for our chat application. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do that in here. Inside this div, I'm going to have another div, and then we're going to have another div here. And this is going to be the header here. I'm going to go ahead and make some comments. So this is going to be the header. And for this app here, so we should have 3 divs right now. I'm going to give this a class name. I'm going to say flex width full. Whoops. Type that in the wrong space using these shortcuts. There we go. Class name. I'm going to say width full. We want to say flex h screen. So it's a height 100 viewport heights. Justify center, and then we'll say items center. And we want to say P4 for padding of 1 rem. And let's just go ahead and put some text in here. We'll say header, so we can just see that on the screen there. We can see it right in the middle of the screen. That's what we want right there. So next, let's come down to our, just above our header here. And so what we just did was the outside of the screen. Now this is gonna be the actual container of our chat application. So let's give this a class name. I'm gonna say border, I'm gonna say 1 pixel, so we can open up the brackets there to accept a custom value in Tailwind. I'm gonna say border gray 700, and let's do max width of 6XL. We'll say width full, and I'm gonna say a min height of, let's say 600 pixels. And I'm gonna say a rounded large, so we get some rounded corners. So if you go ahead and save that, you can see we have this really faint gray container that's gonna be the container of our chat application. So let's go ahead and do our header next. So I'm gonna give this header here a class name. So for our header here, what we're gonna say, we're gonna have a couple things in our header here. We're gonna have, we want to say like who we're signed in as. Going to signed in as Code Commerce. We're gonna show how many users are currently logged into our chat application, and then we also want to have the sign out button. So inside here we'll have a div, and in this div we'll say signed in as name, and then just below this we'll have another p tag. We'll say something like 3 users online, and this is all going to be dynamic when we set it up here in a bit. Then just below that div we'll have a button that says sign out. We'll go ahead and save, and let's see. Let's give this first div a class name. Whoops. I'm going to go up to this one first here. And what we're going to say flex, and we're going to say justify between. So we're going to shove these divs to opposite ends of their screen. I'm going to say height 20 for the height of our little header here. I'm going to say border bottom. We're going to say 1 pixel. Then I'm going to say border, whoops. I'm just going to say border gray 700. Kind of give it that same look and feel, just like that. Then for this, I'm going to say P4 for just a little bit of padding. And then I'm going to change this color. I'm going to say text gray 300. And let's see, that looks good there. Now for our users online, I'm just going to change this, and we'll come back here to actually make this dynamic. You'll see whenever we grab, we can actually tell who's signed into our application. We'll just say text gray 300, italic, and then we'll say text small. So let's see how that looks. Pretty good. Our button does look a little bit funny though, so let's just go ahead and give this class name. I'm going to say margin 2, then anything above small, I'm going to say margin right of 4. And I think that looks pretty good. Smash the like button if you feel like you're getting some value out of this. Also, if you're looking to get a job in tech, maybe your first job, and you're kind of working on your resume, you don't know what it should look like, then click the link below and I'll send you my personal resume that I used to get my last couple jobs in tech. So click the link below and I'll send it to you for free. Okay, so now after this header here, so we have this header, we're going to create 2 more divs. This one here is going to be, I'll give a little notes here. This is going to be our main chat right here. And then we also want to have another section, and this is going to be our message input. And we're going to go ahead and do that in message input right now. So inside here, it's actually not going to be a div. We're going to do a form. I'll say form. Then inside this form, we're going to have an input, and you could do an input type text, or you could do a text area. I like the input type text a little bit better. There we go. I like that. I like to use that a little bit better. I think it just looks a little bit cleaner, but either one's fine. Then after that input, we're going to do a button that says like send or something like that. Now let's give this a placeholder, and we'll just say type message ... And let's go ahead and give this a class name. We'll give it a little padding. We'll say P2 width full. I'm going to say BG. It's basically going to be black, but I want to give just a little bit of I guess like an overlay to it. I think that looks pretty good there. So we remove the 40. That 40 is just like a 40% overlay. Or opacity rather. And then we'll say rounded large, just like that. Now let's go ahead and give this button here, I'm gonna say class name, I'm gonna say margin top on 4, and I actually want this to display underneath, kind of taking up the full width of the screen. Then past a certain breakpoint, I want it to display off to the right. So anything above small, and the SM's a small, it's a 640 breakpoint defined by Tailwind. So I'm gonna say margin top 0, anything above small, I'll say margin left of 8. Then I'm gonna say BG blue 500, and say text white. I'm gonna say max height of 12. So let's go ahead and save. Oh, you know what? It's not actually taking in this blue because we're actually getting some button styles from our index.css. So we'll just take that out. That's fine though. But that looks pretty good there. What we actually need to do next here is style the form. So I'm just gonna say class name on the form. Whoops. Now for this form, I'll say flex, and we'll say flex column. Anything above small, we'll say flex row. And then padding of 4, which is 1 rem, we'll say border top. Again, we'll just say 1 pixel to keep everything consistent. And we'll say border gray. And let's do 700. Let's see how that looks. Pretty good. I like that there. And let's go ahead and just inspect this. If we look at it on a smaller screen, for example, you can now see the button displays just below our message input. But you notice it's kind of shoved up at the top of our messages, and that's fine. That's just because we haven't added anything inside of our main chat element. So let's go ahead and do that next. Let's go ahead and just open this up. Or you know what? Before we do that, let's just go ahead and install a Supabase and get our Google authentication working. I think that'd be a lot more fun. So let's go ahead and do that now. So let's go to Supabase docs. Click on get started, supabase.com/docs. Click on get started. We're using React, so I'm gonna just select React. Scroll down. This is saying to create our app. So all we need to do is actually install Supabase. We're just going to grab that here. npm I at supabase/supabase-js. Let's go ahead and install that. This is some stuff that we don't necessarily need. Okay, so from supabase.com/docs, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So from here, let's see. We want products. Let's click on Auth. Then we'll click this menu button, and let's go to getting started. We'll click on React. We'll scroll down here. We've already installed Supabase. And here we go. Let's go ahead and grab this right here, this entire thing here. We'll come over here and let's just import it. We'll see, we'll just paste it right in there. Need to do a couple things here. So let's go ahead and import the use effect hook. And we're also going to need a .env file. So let's go ahead and create our .env file. And inside here is where we're going to keep our Supabase keys. So let's go back over here. Okay, let's just go back to supabase.com. We'll click start our project. We're going to create a new project. Just hit new project. We can call this whatever you like. I'm going to call this a Supabase chat app, something like that. Database password, just generate a password. You can save that one. Let's create the new project here. All right, so now it gave us some keys. We have some API keys, a non-key service role key in our URL. These are all confidential. You don't want to share these. You don't want to use these. I'm going to put these in my .env file. So just make sure you sign up and get your own, because if you use these, they won't work. So what we're going to say in here, we're just going to say v Supabase underscore Supabase URL, and then we're going to have a v, we'll say Supabase underscore a non-key, just like that. And then let's go ahead and grab our keys. So I'm going to copy this. Whoops, where'd it go? Oh no. Okay, let me go back and find it here. Dashboard and Supabase chat app. There we go. So I'm going to grab the project URL. We'll paste that in there. Then the anon key, I'll grab that and I'll paste that in there. And that's all we need for now. You don't need any other keys. That'll be it for now. We go ahead and close that. All right, so I'm going to open up a new browser here, and this is how we're going to create our just a free Google account to be able to sign in with Google authentication. So I'm going to type in Google Cloud Console, console.cloud.google.com/getting started. This should be what you see here as it loads. And what we're going to do here, let's go ahead and click this menu button here. And again, sign up. This is completely free. We're going to go to APIs and services. Open this up a bit. And what we're going to do is create a new project. You can go. I'm going to call this Supabase chat, something like that, whatever you want. Okay, so inside here, what we're going to do, so we actually have to set up some credentials first. And this is quick and it's easy. Okay, so let's go ahead and set those up. I'll just click credentials. Let's create some credentials. I'm going to click on Auth client ID. Let's configure the consent screen. And I'm just going to use internal for now. That's fine. It's going to want some information. I'll just call this Supabase chat, something like that. A support email. I think it needs one more. There we go. All right. Save and continue. And meanwhile, over here, let's go to, we need to find auth. So we'll click on the menu. Let's go to authentication. And okay, this is good. We're done here. So next, let's go to credentials. Okay. And what we're going to do here, we're going to create credentials, OAuth client ID, application type is going to be a web application. And you can just leave the name like it is, or you can change it if you want to. But we're going to come down here to authorized redirect URIs. We're going to click on that. And now we need to go back over to Supabase here. And inside Supabase, let's click our menu and we're going to click on providers. And these are all the list of providers you can use to authenticate through Supabase. We're just using Google. So let's click on Google. We want to enable that. And here we want to grab the client IDs here and the redirect URL. So this is the callback URL. We're going to copy that. We'll paste it in here. We're going to go ahead and hit create. And now this is what Google gives us to give back to Supabase. So our client ID, we'll copy that. We'll paste that in here for Supabase. And then our client secret, we'll copy that and we'll paste that back in there as well. And then next, let's come back over here. We'll just hit save. And that should literally be everything we need to do in order to configure Google authentication through Supabase. Now we do have to write a couple functions to be able to sign in, but as far as Supabase and Google talking with one another, that should be it. All right, so let's go back into our project here. I'm going to find authentication. And now let's just start writing some code to see if we can pop a user in here and actually authenticate. Before we move forward, we actually need to import a few things. So Supabase, we need to create we actually need to create a Supabase client here. So I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to call it Supabase client.js. And inside here, we're going to need just a couple things. We're going to import create client from at Supabase/Supabase-js. And we'd actually bring in our keys from our .env file. So I'm going to say const Supabase URL equal to import.meta.env.vt_Supabase URL, just like so. And then we'll do the same thing for our anon key. So we'll say Supabase anon key equal to import.meta.env.vt_Supabase anon underscore key. Then we'll just say export const, we'll say Supabase equal to, we'll say create client, and then we're just going to pass in the Supabase URL and the Supabase anon key. Let's just go ahead and save that. Now we can import this Supabase here inside of our app.jsx. Okay, so of course it's not wanting to auto import. That's fine. We'll say import, we'll just say Supabase from Supabase client. There we go. Let's go ahead and save. Took care of that. So we're trying to set a session here, what we grabbed over from Supabase. We actually don't have any state. So I'm going to say const session, set session. And this is actually going to run when it gets some data back from Supabase. And that's going to be an empty array here. So let's go ahead and set up like a sign in and or sign in function and also a sign out function. So this is going to be real easy. I'll just minimize that. We'll have a sign in function, and what we're going to say is const sign in equal to async, it's an asynchronous function, and then we'll just say await supabase.auth.sign in with OAuth. There we go. And we're just going to pass in the provider, and this is just going to be Google. And let's go ahead and create a sign out function while we're at it. We'll say sign out, and inside here we'll just say const sign out equal to async. And inside here, we'll just say const error equal to await supabase.auth.sign out. Now we just need to call this function. So in our header, it's our sign out button. We're just gonna say on click. We just want to run the sign out function. Now to sign in, we don't really have a sign in button because we're just displaying this container here. So what we're gonna do, if we just minimize this just a little bit here, what we'll say over here, we'll say if there's no session, then we actually don't want to render all that. We just want to show, we'll say return, and this is just going to be a div, like a div, and then a button that says, we'll just say sign in with Google to chat. And let's just go ahead and give this just a little bit of styling. It'll actually be the same as this one here. So let's just copy that over. I'll paste that in here, not children. We'll say class name. We don't really need the padding there. We'll take that away. So now what we can say, we'll grab this here, we'll cut it, and we'll say, if there's no session, return this, else return our chat container. So, we're gonna start our server back up, npm run dev. Let's see if we have any errors or anything. And we should just see the sign into chat, hopefully. We don't see anything at all. Oh, there we go. Getting a little laggy there for a second. All right, so now we have sign in with chat because there is no session. So if this were to change, right, if our logic were to change, we should actually see the chat application. But we don't want that for now. So now the question is, if we click this sign in with Google to chat, are we going to actually get redirected to Google and be able to sign into Google to get access to our application? Let's give it a shot. We'll see. Let's click on this here. Oh, we don't, nothing happened because we didn't even add it to our header here. So where is our, right here, we need to have an on click function. And on that on click, we're going to run this sign in. So we'll just say on click, sign in. Let's go ahead and save. We'll try this again. It's redirecting us. I'm going to sign in. Oops, let's go back. Oops, I think I checked the wrong thing. It's blocking us because we're not inside the organization. That's fine. Just open your Google chat or your Google Cloud Console back open. Let's find our Supabase chat here. This is it here. And where are we at? Let's go to, whoops. Let's go to APIs and services, credential. Oh, that was it right there, actually. Configure OAuth screen, OAuth consent screen, and we'll just simply switch this. Make external. Let's do in production, just like that. We'll confirm. So we need to save. Let's go back and try this again. Sign in with Google. Yes. Continue. Ah, there we have it. Perfect. Okay. So now it works. We just had to make that minor little update. And let me go ahead and just, there we go. All right. So now we're actually signed in. Signed in his name's not working. 3 users online. That's not working. But let's go ahead and just console.log our session, because we're setting that inside of this use effect, right? So we're setting our session in here. And if we console log it, you can actually see this session that we're getting back from Supabase, Google, however you want to look at it. So this is the session here. And if we access the user, we get all this metadata in here, user metadata, last signed in, profile pic, so on and so forth. And we're going to use all that in this application that we're building. So here where it says signed in with name, we're going to go ahead and actually put our own name in there. So if we go down here and say signed in, I'm just going to say that, we'll make that uppercase, signed in as name ... What we're going to do here, we'll just open up some curly brackets, and how we're going to access this is the session, right? So we'll say session user.email. Put one more in there. So this should now say, hey, depending on who you're signed in as, don't make fun of my name. I was doing some e-commerce for a little bit. Still am, but it's going all right. Struggle out there. So you can say signed in as name or as your email. If you want to change that, for example, if you come down here, user, if you click on user metadata, so this is what we're accessing right here. If you change that email, you can change it to full underscore name, and it'll just render whatever Google has on you there. So for example, full underscore name. Is that right? Render as name, signed in as, let's see how that works. Signed in as full name. Maybe that's not working. Oh, I'm a dummy. This is actually user underscore metadata full name. All right. So there you can see signed in as Clint. But you know, for this, I'm just going to say you can do email, chat, whatever. I don't know. It's up to you how you want to display your app. But now, so we can sign in, we can authenticate. We're actually displaying who's actually authenticated, who's logged into our app. So we actually need to be able to sign out too. So where's our sign out button here at the top, right? So on click, if we sign out, hopefully this works. There we have it. So now we have basic sign in, sign out functionality incorporated into our Supabase chat application. So now let's go ahead and we'll sign back in here. Let's go ahead and incorporate the actually chatting part of this messages. We're gonna have of our project here. We're gonna have all our messages kind of be rendered here in the middle. So we have our header there. We have our main chat is just an empty div. So let's go ahead and play with that one right now. Let's see what we're going to add in here. So I'm going to give this a class name, and what I want this to be, we'll say P-4. We'll say flex column, overflow Y auto, and that's going to make it scroll whenever users are typing in their messages. And I'm going to say height of 500 pixels. So that should kind of shove everything down to the bottom. Now it's starting to look like a chat application. Smash the like button if you think this is cool. You may be getting a little value out of it. I don't know. And what we're going to do next is actually render out some messages here. So we don't have any messages to send. We don't have any messages stored. So I'm going to scroll on up here to the top. But before we do that, like for our messages, so we're going to need to add some more state. So for our messages, we're actually going to need some state to store all of our messages. Then we're also going to need some state to store a new message. So, and then also to keep some users online, to show how many users are online. So I'm going to say const, we'll do messages, we'll do set messages equal to use state. And by default, this is going to be an empty array there. Actually, yeah, we'll just leave it an empty array. Next, for our actual message, we'll say new message. This is for whoever might be typing. Set new message. And this is going to be use state. This is going to be an empty string. And then we'll just say const users online. Set users online. This is actually how many people are currently logged in to our chat room. So let's come down to our input here inside of our form. And for our input, we're going to need a few things. So we have the placeholder, our type, and our class name. We're also going to need a value, and the value is just going to be a new message, that state we just created. And then we'll say on change, what's the event, and we're going to set the new message to the event.target.value. So the way we're going to have this real time, they're sockets. With Supabase, it's called channels, and that's what Supabase uses. So we'll come up here, and what we're going to do is like basically just create a channel for Supabase to listen to. And we're going to do this inside of a use effect. We'll just add the dependency session. So first off, we'll say if there's no session or user, I want to go ahead and set users online. We'll just set that to an empty array, and we want to return that. Next, this is going to be our room. So we'll say const, we'll say room1 equal to supabase.channel, and then we'll just say room1. You can call it whatever you like. We'll just say room1. We're only going to have one room anyways. We're going to say config. Inside here, we'll say presence, and we'll say a key, and this is going to be our session underscore user underscore ID. Let's go ahead and save. Then we're going to be using broadcast, which is also a Supabase function here. So we'll say room1.on, open up the parentheses, and we'll say broadcast in quotes. Want the event message. It's going to be a string. And then we're going to use an arrow function and pass in payload. And we'll set messages to prev messages. And we're just going to use the spread operator for prev messages and payload. And we can go ahead and console.log it if we want to. Console.log the messages. Let's go ahead and save. Now we want to track user presence here. So we have our room set up. And if we want to just track, we'll say track user presence and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel too, by the way. So we'll say room1.subscribe, and we'll just say async. It's going to be a status function here. And we'll say if status equal, and this is what we're getting back from Supabase. We'll say subscribed. Then what we want to do is await room1.track, open up parentheses and our curly brackets, and we'll say ID. And this is just the session ID of the user. And we also want to be able to track up here where we say 3 users online. If someone leaves from the chat room, we want to update that dynamically and up to date. So we're going to come down here and we'll just say handle user presence again. And so inside here, we'll say room1.on, we'll say presence. And again, we're going to get a event sync. This is going to be a callback function. We'll say const state equal to room1.presence state. And then we'll just set users online. We'll say object.keys state. Let's go and save. And then finally, what we need to do is actually unsubscribe from this room. So we'll say return. And we'll say room1.unsubscribe. All right, I think that looks pretty good. We're gonna need to do a couple more things to be able to send a message. So we'll do that. Need a send message. We'll say send message. And we're also going to add a timestamp to the messages that we send as well. But let's go ahead and set this thing up so we can actually send a message. So our input is where we're gonna set an on change to our input. So whatever we type in here is going to appear on the screen. Let's come back up here and we'll do our send message function here. So I'm going to say const send message. It's going to be an asynchronous function. We're going to have the event in here. Whoops. E.prevent default. We don't want to submit our form or anything like that. So we'll say supabase.channel. And there's a lot of really great documentation on here. If you want to read the docs, I strongly suggest you do so. I was able to throw this together actually after just reading the docs for just a short time. So it's really not that hard. So we'll say broadcast, and then we'll just say event. It's going to be message. And then we just need to get the payload, and the payloads will have message. And so the payload that we're sending is the new message state that we have. And we can send some other things through as well. And this is just stuff that we want to render out on the UI. Or if you want to save it in the database, you can do that too. We're not going to do that in this video. But for the sake of this video, whenever a user submits a message, we want that message to display on the screen. A few things you also might want is the user's email or their name who's sending it. So you can kind of render it by the message. We're also going to use the avatar. And then I'm also going to include a timestamp that the message was sent. So we can go ahead and do that here. I'll just say username, and we already found where a lot of this stuff was in the metadata down here, right? Oh, it's giving me an error there, but if you just comment that out, you know, a lot of this is found just here in like the user metadata. So if we go to user metadata, this is what we're going to display, for example, this avatar URL. So we'll uncomment that. And so for the username, that's just going to be session underscore user, and this is going to be user metadata. There we go. Metadata. And then also we're going to use the email. And then for avatar, we said that was at session underscore user metadata underscore avatar. I see I misspelled that. Cool. All right. And then the timestamp. I forgot we're doing the timestamp. Let's say timestamp. Whoops, not time ranges. Timestamp. And we'll just say new date. Whoops, new date. There we go. New date dot to ISO string. Cool. Let's do that. So I'll just give a current timestamp whenever a user submits a message. And then finally, we probably want to set new message just to a blank state after we send this. So let's go ahead and type something and see. Actually, we're not rendering anything out, so nothing's going to happen. I forgot we haven't done that yet. So again, yeah, you can see nothing happens. At least our form doesn't submit. So what we want to do here, we're just getting this empty object. Let's come down to our main chat here. I'm just going to drop that down a little bit. Drop that. So inside this main chat, this is where we're going to render out all of our messages. So what we'll say here, I'm just going to say messages.map. Whoops. And we'll say message, and we want the index there. And for now, we'll just give it a p tag. I'm just going to say message.message. Let's go ahead and save, see if anything works now. Oh, we forgot to add an on. I forget we forgot to add the on submit. So we'll add that in here. We'll say on submit because we didn't write it yet, or now we have. We'll say send message, and this is just the function that we have above here that we just wrote. So now if we have something in here, send a message, you can see it actually displays on the screen. We're getting a couple errors. Child in React needs a unique identifier. That's cool. So we'll come down here where our message is at. We'll take care of that in a second because we're going to change how we render everything. We're not just going to render out a p tag, but you can see we can actually render stuff on the screen. That's pretty awesome. And I wanted to just open this up here. If we sign in over here, and this is a different Google account that I'm going to be signing in with. Yes, yes, continue. So now you can see if we paste something in here, it actually shows up on the screen. I'm a different account. We'll go ahead and send that over. So you can see we're actually trading messages back and forth. But we actually want to make some UI improvements so we can see which message is coming from who, and we're also going to add in some metadata, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove that one for now. Let's refresh, and let's go ahead and just start working on like the UI, the layout of actual like the main body of our chat messages. So inside here, I'm actually just going to cut that because I don't want to just display that. I'm going to display a div in here, and inside this div here, there we go. We'll put that inside the div there for now. And this is going to be the individual message container. And what we want to say, if we're the sender, we want this message to appear on the right side of the screen. And if we're not the sender, then we want it to display on the left side of the screen. So how we're going to do that, we'll give it a class name, and we're actually going to have some dynamic values. So we're going to open up some curly brackets in here. We use the backticks, and we always want this to have a margin of y of 2. So we're going to add that in there. I'm going to say flex width full items start here. Now I'm going to do some dynamic values. So we'll do the $sign and some curly brackets. And I'm going to say if the message dot username, which is what we're passing in with each message, right? So if that username is equal to the logged in user, which we can access through a session. So we'll say session underscore user or dot user dot email. So if that statement is true, what we want to say is justify end. Else what we want to say is justify start. So let's see if we type something in now, we can actually see it on the right side of the screen. And I have this other browser open, you can't see it, but let's see if it works. So I'm submitting it off the screen, and you can see that the other sender, the receiver on this case, is coming in on the opposite side of the screen. So that is perfect. That's what we want right there. So next we want to use the avatar, right? The picture that you may have with Google, or just the rounded circle with your initials, whatever you have set up. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say, and we're going to have two versions of this depending on if you're on the right or the left. So we'll say received message avatar on left, something like that. Okay, and inside here, what we're going to say is message dot username, and if this is equal to the session dot user dot email, if this is true, what we're going to render out the image. And instead of the source, let's comment, we'll get rid of the quotes, and we'll just say message.avatar, which is what we're getting from our actual message. And you can just put a slash in there, doesn't really matter. And hopefully we see something here. There's a little bit of image. There's the image there. What we want to do is actually give some styling on this. So I'm going to say class name, I'm going to say width 10, height of 10, which is like just over 1 rem, or just over 2 rem. And then we'll just say rounded full. I'm gonna say margin right of 2. I'm gonna give this a refresh. Ooh, we're still getting this key thing. So I'm just gonna do this real quick so we can take care of that. We'll say key IDX, that takes care of that error there. So we're still not getting an image. So let's see what's going on there. I'm gonna look over here. Might just be accessing it in the wrong place. User underscore session, user, metadata, avatar URL. So I think that's the problem. Let's see if that works. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So we just had avatar in there instead of the avatar underscore URL that's inside the user metadata that we're getting back from Google. So apologies for that. Where were we? All right, so we are rendering out our message there, and we just finished rendering out our avatar if it's on the left here. Next, let's go ahead and we're going to give like a chat bubble, so it's just kind of easier on the UI, easier to read. So let's just create a div here, and I'm going to put this message inside there for now. I'm gonna give this a class name, and what we're gonna say here is flex. We'll say flex column width full, so we're gonna have a couple things in here. Then for this container, this is gonna be the actual color, right? The actual color, if it's green or gray, however we wanna do it. I'm gonna say class name, class name, and instead of those quotes, we're gonna use the curly brackets. We can have some dynamic values in here. I'm gonna say padding of, we need some backticks, padding of 1, and then we'll say a max width of, we'll say 70%, and this means that no matter however long this message is, it'll just start to wrap if it's past 70%. We'll say rounded XL, and then still inside of our curly brackets, we'll open up some dynamic values here, and we'll say if the message dot username, so if this is equal to the logged in user, so if, in other words, if you are the one sending the message, this is what we want. These are the styles we want to give you. And we'll say Whoop, there. Else we're going to give you this different styles. So if you are the logged in user and you're the one sending the message, I'm going to say BG gray 700, 600, doesn't matter. And I'm going to say text white, and I'm going to say margin left auto, because this is going to be on the right side of the screen. And let's just copy this down. So if you're the receiver, we won't want that 700. We'll change it to 500. So it's a slightly different color. We'll change this to margin right auto. Let's give it a refresh and see what happens. So we should be on the right. Looks good. This is kind of looking funky. We haven't played around with that yet. And we'll bring this one back over here. We'll send. So now you can see these are kind of showing up on different sides of the screen. We still have our image not exactly where we want it, but that's okay. We'll take care of that in a second. Let's give it a refresh there. All right, we got item start, perfect. So next, let's go ahead and add a timestamp. So we'll just say timestamp of the message, something like that, timestamp. So inside here, and we're gonna add this just below that div here. And what we're gonna say, we'll say message dot timestamp, something like that, I think, hopefully. See if that renders. Hey, there we go. We get this ugly unformatted timestamp, or at least it's not formatted in a way that we can readily read it and know what it's saying. So we'll handle that so we can actually display what we want. Let's go ahead and just give this some class names real quick too. So for our timing here, I'm going to take away that. We'll do some custom values here. So I'll have the backticks. I'm going to say text. I want to say extra small. I want the opacity to be 75, padding top of 1. And we'll say if message.username equal to session.user.email. If that's true, we want to render something out. Else, or not render, we'll have a certain set of styles. Otherwise, we'll have different styles. And we'll just say text right, and we want to have margin right of 2. And else, if they're not, we'll say text left, margin left 2. So let's go ahead and save. Now you can see it's kind of displaying right under there. And it's looking good. That's bothering me. We're going to get to that in a second, though. Let's format our time, and we can do that up here. We'll just set it. Let's set it right here. Doesn't really matter. And what we'll say here, it's just going to be a function. We'll say const format time equal to, we'll pass in, format time equal to, we'll pass in ISO string. Just going to be an arrow function. We'll say return new date. There we go. Date, ISO string, dot, say to locale time string. That's what we want. And we'll just say en-us, curly brackets. We'll say hour, numeric, minute, 2-digit, hour 12. We want that to be true. So let's save that, and we'll come down to where we are rendering out the timestamp. And inside here, we'll just take that like so. Actually, we don't even need the brackets. Let's grab that. And our function name was format time, and we'll just pass in the message.time. So now you can see 352 looks pretty good. That image though is bothering me on the wrong side of the screen. Let's go ahead and fix that right now. So underneath here, we'll come down outside of the container here, and what we'll say here, let's open up some curly brackets. We'll say message.user_name equal to session.user.email. If this is true, we want to render out the image. Let's just grab this up here. Where was that? Save some typing. All about the copy and the paste. We'll paste that in here. Instead of margin right 2, we'll say margin left 2. Let's see. Hey, wait a minute. Looks like we're on both sides of the screen here. Let's just pull up our other one here. Refresh. Yeah, so we're still on both sides of the screen. That's not what we want. Oh, hit the refresh. Oops, okay. Go back here. So yeah, we still have this on the left side of the screen. Let's go take a look. Avatar on left. Okay, hold on. We don't want that. There we go. Okay, so let's try this again. Let me bring up my other window here. We'll go localhost 5173. We'll sign in with somebody else. We just want to make sure that this is indeed displaying correctly. Okay, so that is what we want. That looks pretty good, pretty good. All right, so now what we want to do, I'm gonna go ahead and just remove that. So right now it says we have 3 users online. We don't have 3 users online. We now just have 1. And we want this to display dynamic. Whenever someone logs in, we want just to increment that by 1. And we should have already done that in here, up here with our, this is our send message, with our handle user presence. So what we're gonna do now, if we just come down to our users, where's our signed in? It's in our header, signed in as user, 3 users online. So what we'll do, open up some curly bracket and we'll just say users online. This is actually just an array. So we can just say .length and hopefully it says 2 users online. I'll show this screen again. So we have our 2 users online. And if I sign out of this one over here, you can see auto updates to 1. That's what I'm talking about. That looks pretty good. You guys smash the like button if you feel like you're getting some value out of this. We have another problem though. So if we go to lorem text or something like that, there we go. If we get this long paragraph, for example, we get this long paragraph, type it in here, type this in here. It looks good, but if you notice something, we're still stuck at the end. We're actually not scrolling down to the bottom of the screen, and that's just a poor user experience. So what we're gonna do to fix that, let's come back over here. We'll find our, so we have our main chat. We'll close that one for now. Let's just kind of keep this nice and clean. So inside here, just under our button here, we're gonna use a ref. So we'll say span. It's just going to be empty, but we'll say ref scroll, and we're actually going to get this configured now. So if we go back up to the top here, we want to import, use ref, just like that. Now we're just going to write another use effect. We can put it at the bottom here, just kind of keep everything nice and neat. I'll put this just below our format time. So we'll have another use effect. And this is going to run every time the messages dependency changes. So we're just going to say set timeout. We'll say if. Now we need to have a few refs in here. So we added that one down at the bottom. So let's go up here and we'll say, just create a few things here. We'll say const chat container ref. We'll say use ref null. Then we'll say chat, or say const scroll equal to use ref. There we go. Looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and save. Get an error there. There we go. Oh, we still have that. We haven't. It's giving us an error because we just left an empty if statement. So we'll say if chat container ref dot current. We're going to run this chat container ref dot current dot scroll top equal to chat container ref dot current dot scroll height. And then we'll just add a dependency of 100 milliseconds. Let's go ahead and save. Now we need to add a few things here in the header, I believe here. Actually, it's going to go in the message component, not the header, because we want it to be at the top of the chat. So inside here, and just inside of our main chat there, we're just going to say ref, and this is going to be the chat container ref. And then I believe we already added one down here. Yes, the ref scroll. So let's try this again. I'm going to paste in our long message. Hopefully this works. Hey, there we go. Now let's also, this scrolls nicely. Make sure, I'm going to open up our other window here. We'll make sure to sign in. I want to make sure it scrolls on both sides whenever a new message comes in. And as you can see, boom, that new messages or new users online. That looks good. So I'm going to send a message over here, and this should scroll over here on the left. Hey, looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. You guys smash the like button if you feel like you're getting some value out of this. I appreciate you sticking along throughout the build. That should wrap it up right there though. Let's see, we can sign out. Just a quick recap. That should sign it. We can sign in here with one account. We're going to sign in here with another account. Once we have both windows open, we'll make sure authenticated on both 2 different Google accounts. We click over there. Hello. There you go. Hey, how's it going? there you have it, you guys. Thanks for watching. Smash the like button. You guys, if you're looking for that first tech job and you're not sure what kind of resume you should have, again, I put the link below. Sign up. I'll send you a free tech resume, the one that I use to get my jobs, and just change around your specific skills, your job history, so on and so forth. So smash the like button. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.